Question. What was the best part of the 70s? The music, man! During the 70s, the pinnacle of pop culture was the music industry. Everybody who was famous because of music. You had bands like Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, and David Bowie, who all were at the peak of their careers in the 70s. But not only did they make amazing music, they also used it to send a message. During the 70s, music used themes of protest, outrage, and drugs and sex to create an anti-establishment perspective, all because of the counterculture movement. So today, I'm going to walk you through these themes and go through some of the more popular songs that influenced the counterculture movement. Now, at the beginning of the 70s, you had things going on like the Vietnam War, which was really influential, and then the Kent State shooting, two things people protested about a lot. One such song was Machine Gun by Jimi Hendrix. Songfacts describes Jimi Hendrix's career as being centered around peace and love up until this point, in which he describes what it's like to be a trapped soldier in Vietnam and hearing gunfire go off. During this song, he plays his guitar in such a way that it really does sound like a gun going off. And though there's no studio recordings of it, there are some very powerful live recordings that I would recommend. Another protest song, War by Edwin Starr, literally begs the question, war, what is it good for? With that answer being absolutely nothing. This is a really strong stance to take against the military at this time and was pretty groundbreaking for protest songs. Another event was the Kent State shooting in Ohio, in which 4 young protesters were shot and killed. Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young was a band that wrote the song Ohio, which depicted the disdain and the government's reaction to such an event. In the line, 10 soldiers and Nixon's coming, not only do they call out the military holding up martial law because of this event, they also literally call out the president, which was a move that really hadn't been done until then. Now, most of these songs are about disdain with the military, but there was also a lot going on here in America that was really unsatisfying for a lot of people. So a lot of artists picked out things like the education system, the justice system, and the criteria that the establishment pushed. And what they did was they used concept albums to talk about a certain topic and really flush it out entirely, with each song on the album being related to something. Maybe the most influential concept album of all time was Dark Side of the Moon. This album has a lot to do with life and death, and songs like Money talk about commercialism and how much it's pushed on you, but money really does become something that controls your life. And then another song, Us and Them, talks about the tendency for people to try and separate into teams when really there is no difference between us and them. Now, another Pink Floyd album, The Wall, talks about a lot of different aspects of society and how it can be very self-isolating. Maybe their most famous song, Another Brick in the Wall, talks about the education system. Oral Crave writes that this song is the critique of the educational system and how it does not allow one to discover their own abilities, and too often it suffocates creativity. Another concept album, What's Going On by Marvin Gaye, talks about the injustice against minorities, the poor conditions in the working class, and just all other sorts of disdain for people in America. And though concept albums were very big and very influential, some people did stick with just regular protest songs, like Bob Dylan when he wrote about Reuben Hurricane Carter in the song Hurricane. It's an 8.5-minute song all telling the story of this young boxer who was tried for murder even though he didn't commit it just because of racial profiling. It's probably one of the most powerful songs of Bob Dylan's career, and it eventually, though way later, led to Carter being released. So, like I said, these are some pretty heavy songs that really call into a lot of questions about the government, but it wasn't all like that. Some of it was just self-expression. A lot of the music industry used sex and drugs to express themselves in a way that was against what the government thought they should do. Songs were written about LSD, cocaine, and heroin especially, and I'll talk to you about some of those. The Eagles' classic Hotel California depicts addiction and how dangerous it can be. And Rolling Stone writes that it is the portrayal of the excess, self destructive behavior that is so much the status quo in rock and roll at that point in time. In lines like, "You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave," and "We are all prisoners here of our own device," it really takes a serious stance on drug use and addiction, one that really wasn't that common until now. Another song about addiction is Led Zeppelin with Stairway to Heaven. It talks of the lady we all know who is just trying to find that path to happiness, and for this character, it just happens to be heroin. Now, once again, these are some more heavy topics, but some of them are more fun, just about doing drugs. You have songs like "A Horse with No Name" by America that talks about the long and fun journey of doing heroin and the heat and dryness that comes with that. You have "Magic Man" that talks about the interrelationships between a young lady and her drug dealer who she stays with against the wills of her mother. And then you have "Cocaine" by Eric Clapton, which we all know what that's about. Now, some other songs were about sex, which was relatively a new thing. And while you did have some artists use sexual dance moves and themes like Elvis, it really became much more popular and useful in the 70s. One song like "A Whole Lot of Love" is really about the powerful love and intimate feelings you can have for one of your partners. And the guitar solo in the middle has been described as borderline pornographic due to the themes of the song as well as the intense playing by Jimmy Page. And then, of course, you have "Let's Get It On" by Marvin Gaye, which is a bedtime classic that everybody knows is about sex. So, in conclusion, in the pop culture, you had themes of counterculture used by songs about protest, outrage, and taboo things like drugs and sex, all just to show that people did not align with what their government was saying. So now you're going to learn more about the political side of things and why people felt so disillusioned with the government.